this morning that will inform our kind of next steps on the way to the procurement. We're intending for it to be kind of like a national delivery, and it's just to be really clear, it's not sort of direct funding to fund placements of supported internships. It's to really build that capacity across the sector, so kind of directed some funding at sort of local authority send employment forums, we're thinking, a quality assurance framework that we want to use to sorry, all of this was in my head strongly this morning and talked about it so much it's hard to repeat. Quality assurance framework to improve the quality. So there's like different aspects to it. So it's sort of like national delivery to improve the quality of provision and number of placements across the country, if that's helpful, Annie.
Thank you.
Louise as well. Should we go to Louise Pilter?
Hiya. You mentioned about the funding. Would any be what I've been delivering with I work at West Nants College in Nottinghamshire, and we've been delivering support internships for 3 years. But what we've found is that, you know, the training for staff delivering supported internships is very scarce. You know, we've been quite lucky. Ellen came over to us back in August, September to deliver some TSI training, which was fantastic, and we found it really valuable, but that's very, you know, few and far between in terms of, and I know we've discussed with our local authority some supported employment training as well, you know, to support our job coaches and us as teams to, you know, to build that quality of our programmes.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, I think that's really helpful and important points to note. So another aspect that we're hoping to expand on is job coach training and different ways to deliver that, improve the access to that across the country, and also kind of work with employers, employer engagement type of like a strand of activity that again will kind of link to working with education providers like colleges, etc., and sort of local authorities, staff. So yeah, sort of definitely like what the kind of things you're talking about there.
I think it's a welcome. The funding is very welcome to try and improve the quality of the delivery of supported internships, and obviously the staff being available and trained. There's also Kerry's hand up. Was it Joyce?
Yeah, really just following on from the last question, actually. I think you've answered my question. That's something the college where I'm based at, we're looking at launching an internship post-September, so the next academic year. Is that something that we could sort of tap into with that expertise and what funding is available? And obviously we've sought some funding ourselves, but obviously it'll be great to use knowledge that's already there and sort of tap into to what you're doing as well nationally.
Yeah,
and how can I do that?
Sorry, I just want to ask where you are.
Brighton.
Brighton, okay. Yeah, we can tap you into some people definitely in East Sussex who are doing some really good work around supported internships. So if you want to, get in touch after this, we can definitely put you in touch with the right people.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks. We had a question in the chat as well. I just wanted to look back on there. So I think Scott I've hopefully answered that one. So there will be funding for local authorities. We're thinking it will be grant funding, ring-fenced grant funding, but timescales still sort of to be confirmed. We're working through that, and that was again part of the sort of conversations this morning and how the best way to get that funding across is. We're not planning at the moment for it to be kind of local authorities to bid for the funding. We want sort of national access to this, so it will be every local authority will receive funding. That's the part of the plans. Hope that helps answer that question.
That's brilliant. That's really good news. Alex has got his hand up as well. Alex Lloyd.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm from Oakwood Court College down in Dawlish in Devon. So a bit like the previous lady said, we're looking to start the supported internship in September. So yeah, are there any sort of links or bits of I don't know, tips or anything around this way that we could kind of talk to?
Right. Rachel, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah,
the PFA website, Alex. The PFA website's full of information around supported internships and developing them. So I would suggest you start there. And there's a tab around resources for employment, and it'll give you things like vocational profiles. It talks about routes into employment. We've got a guide for employers as well. So there's a lot of things on there. And if you can't find what you're looking for, then please just drop us an email at the Preparing for Adulthood website.
Right,
there's another hand up. Elaine Dale.
So I was just going to build on your offer of support, but Alex, we're I'm on one of the 3 SEND Centres for Excellence, and so we support FE providers or providers around supported interns. So I've put my email in the chat if you wanted to catch up with me afterwards, or just drop me a line, then I can support you as well.
Great, thanks, Elaine. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Great. There is another question in the chat from Lucy Beattie.
Yeah,
Can you see that?
one. Yeah, about sort of every LA, which departments will be put through. So not at the moment, no. So that's still sort of part of the thinking we need to work through, and we'll make that really clear. All of this information will be set out clearly in our kind of invitation to tender and any grant letters that are distributed. So do keep an eye out for that. We'll sort of share it through various networks to make sure things are accessible to people and they've got the information they need. But yeah, hopefully that answers that for now. Can't really expand too much more.
Brilliant, thank you, that's really good. Kerry or Joyce, I'm not sure which is which is your first name, but your hand's still up. Is that another question? You're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I thought I'd take my hand down. Apologies, let me find my hand. But thank you for the information, it's been great, thank you.
That's brilliant, thank you. I don't think the other...
Got one more question from Paula. The funding pot. So the overall investment in the supported internship programme is up to £18 million over the next 3 financial years. But we are expecting for £8 million of that to be contracted services, and then the rest to local authorities. But again, I'll share the links either in this chat and then with Ellen sort of circulating the minutes as well, so you can kind of look back on this information too.
Well, because we're recording it, people can listen to you as well, Rachel, which will be good. Okay, are there any other final questions for Rachel before we move on? I think that's great, Rachel. Really good information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Carol, do you want to introduce Tony Marie?
Yes, Tony Marie, are you there? Hello.
She is.
Hello. We've had a few exchanges about technical things, haven't we, Tony? I think it's fair to say. Am I right in thinking you're sharing your slides, or do you want me to?
No, I'm happy to share them, and hopefully we won't have any technical problems. I know we've got all our fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, okay. Super, thanks.
Okay, that's up my side. Can someone just let me know?
Yeah, that's good, thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so I'm here today talking about the SEND Employability Hub model that we have in Hampshire. And I'm talking about it as part of the work we're currently doing with the Education Training Foundation as an employer. An employer spoke off of the Centres of Excellence for SEND, which Elaine talked about earlier. I'm going to apologise up front. I seem to have woken up this morning with a nice dose of tonsillitis. So I might sound a little bit weird, but I will try to get my voice to hold out throughout. But please do, if I miss anything, please ask any questions. So my plan today is just run through a little bit about what all our talents is for Hampshire and our role within that employer spoke and what we're trying to do there. A little bit about our Employability Hub model and some of the outcomes we've had from the pilot so far. Some of the core components of that hub model are around embedding those employment principles in post-16 education. So just talk through how we're doing that at the moment. And the supported internship pathway as a final step into employment is very central in the model as well. And also talking a bit about how we're growing our partnership working. So, I've just seen a comment pop up that someone can't see slides. Is that an everyone problem or just a one person?
I can see them, Tony.
No?
I
Okay.
It's fine.
See them, that's fine.
I'm happy for them to be shared after the fact, and I hope people don't get too lost if they can't. So all our talents is our Hampshire's Send Employability Action Plan. And it's really about how we set out Hampshire's ambition to ensure all of our young people have the aspirations, opportunity and support to help them live fulfilling and independent lives. So it's about our commitment as a council to ensuring improved outcomes for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. And we wanted all our talents to represent an engaged and developing action plan for the sector. So what we didn't want is to have a great strategy that talked very nicely about our ambitions without putting some really key steps in place. So one of the key things we talked about within that action plan is around those Send Employability pathways. As part of our cohort 1 with the Send Employment hubs, we were lucky enough to, we're alongside our established Send Employability hubs and some associated employers. We were lucky enough to be awarded as an ETF Centre of Excellence for Send Employer Spoke, and that has meant we're running a series of events to reach out directly to employers on a very much peer-to-peer communications. So it's about hosting them and allowing employers to come together and share those stories with employers about the best ways forward. So the model we're sharing is our Send Employability hubs. So they're primarily based within colleges across Hampshire, and it's around working with learners to bring together those employment preparation principles alongside educational priorities from day one in a post-16 education. So it's about ensuring that young people have that comprehensive pathway in place from the time they move into post-16. And wherever possible, some of this work can be done earlier in secondary schools. That would be our next step forward. But many of our Send Employability hubs are using the pilot programme, the outcomes, to create innovative ways to work with Send young people for these employment pathways and working and piloting what best prepares them for work moving forward. So the key objectives is to provide opportunities for young people to gain that knowledge and experience to access employment and providing those strong links and pathways into meaningful and sustained employment. This is our hub, so I won't read them all out, but we are trying to ensure we have a good geographical spread across Hampshire so that they're accessible for everyone across our reasonably large county. We commenced in September 2020, and I will touch back on the point of starting an employability focused programme, shall we say, in September 2020. And I'm sure you all remember the challenges we would have faced at that time for that. We opened 4 other hubs in 2021, and we're due to be joined by 2 further colleges this September. The hub models, as I said, it's around innovation for our colleges to look at what works and what needs to be brought in. Each hub has a slightly different model of how they're working, but this is kind of an exemplar of what they look like. So it's around how we bring in those key supported employment elements, so that early and in-depth vocational profiling, development plans, long-term goal-driven and supported work experience, alongside that study programme that we would see within a post-16 environment. So some of our young people won't be on vocational studies as well as an employability hub offer. Some of them might be doing entry levels, or they might be on kind of RAPA foundation courses that are almost entirely focused and folded on those preparing for adulthood outcomes. And the idea being that this develops at its own pace. So it's kind of a 1+1+1 model, with young people exiting their 3rd year into paid employment or apprenticeships. So we're at the midpoint at the moment. So we're just coming in to our midway mark, and this is kind of where we're looking at the moment. So we've got 180 learners. We aim for 180 learners enrolled. We actually enrolled 126 learners. We've currently got 93 active learners. We had quite a high, we had about, I think it was about 17% dropout in first year. And that was in some cases young people dropping out of college completely in that 20 to 21 academic year. And in other cases, it was young people that were not in an emotional mental health position to be able to engage in additional support mechanisms during that year, for reasons that I think we can all understand, being the year that the academic year 2020 to 2021 was. The aim is to ensure that there's vocational profiling, PFA particularly focusing on the independence and employability delivered, and those access to workplace engagements and work experience. On the whole, we are achieving that quite well. There are the workplace and work experience contact is slightly lower than we would have liked. Obviously, as we all know, employer engagements have not been the easiest task because of the different pressures on businesses over the last 18 months, 2 years. But what we have got is we've got 3%, which accounts for only 4 young people that have exited over the first 18 months of the programme. So that's within 18 months of joining post-16 in year 12 into paid employment and a paid apprenticeship. So we've got 1 young person that moved into an under 16 hours employment, 2 young people that have moved into full-time employment, and 1 that's moved into apprentice. We also have quite a large cohort of young people that are now accessing part-time employment alongside their college courses. So, as I said, one of the key aspects of this is about how the employability hubs can focus on bringing together that post-16 education alongside learning from supported employment, to ensure that the young people are best prepared for their journeys into employment and adulthood. So key for us is about how we embed those aspirations, knowledge and skills from day one in our education settings to help young people realise these ambitions. And obviously ambitions to work can be supported earlier than college, but we want to ensure that that communication with parents and young people is key as we're entering post-16 around that journey from post-16 education and into employment. So we very much talk about a key component of being able to do this is that dynamic and holistic vocational profiling from day one. So it has to be done in order to create those individualised development plans that can address aspirations, experience and development, and be supported and developed in time before accessing that supported internship. So for many of our young people, what we're trying to do is ensure that that supported internship year is the most productive it can be by ensuring that that learning and those workplace engagements are happening in the year or 2 years before that supported internship year. So vocational profiles are being started in September of their first year in post-16 and developed and built upon based on work experience, outcomes from development plans, their learning within class, so that when they come to that supported internship, be that year 2 or year 3 or even year 4 in some cases, they're prepared and they know what employment they're looking for and they've had those opportunities and experiences. We can then utilise our time in class to ensure that we are focusing on development of those functional and soft skills in line with our preparing for adulthood principles. So making sure we've got that speaking and listening, creativity and problem solving all rolled into our curriculum delivery within post-16, as well as those practical skills such as CV writing and interview practice, and financial capability and digital skills. And then there's also an opportunity within that education environment to engage in those practical skills for a specific job. So if a young person is on a catering course, is engaged with that environment, is still developing that, we can look at how we can support things like food hygiene certificates early on. So as I said, it's about how you pick that model as well, and ensuring that your model, be that a RAPA course that is focused entirely on your PFA outcomes, or a bolt-on, if you want, of employability skills alongside a vocational course, but ensuring that whatever enrichments or bolt-ons or central, they all fold in and talk to each other. So how are the employability skills you're developing in your enrichment being informed and delivered by the curriculum leads and tutors, as well as being supported in that workplace? So making sure it all talks to each other. Our employability elements are delivered in a multitude of ways, in one-to-ones or small groups, very individualised based on development plans, and ensuring that, again, it's all folding in together. One of the key things as well, and it was mentioned earlier, is about ensuring that we can develop that workforce as well. So through our hubs provision, we provide training. So all of our hubs get the opportunity to access British Association of Supported Employment job coach training, as well as support from our commissioned adult services Ways into Work supported employment. So they get opportunities for mentoring and supervision through Ways into Work, and access to a whole range of training days from them as well, to ensure that we are building the capacity and developing our workforce within our colleges to ensure we can best bring those priorities together. We're also very much about using that knowledge and skills that are already out there. There is a huge range of tools and resources available through the Preparing for Adulthood website, through our partners in the Centres for Excellence, and there's the Skill Builder Universal Framework and the My Skills and My Future. So there's a great amount of support out there available to bring these key elements into the curriculum. So we very much utilise that and support that. But key to embedding those in-class employability is ensuring it's closely linked with the work environment. So making sure that your learning is reinforced from your in-class employability into their work experience or workplace visits. And that long-term goal-driven work experience that you regularly review and build on is key to reinforcing that and helping learners put that in-class employability into practice in their curriculum. So our supported internships do represent kind of the final steps in our pathway to employment. That is not for every learner on our hub. Some of our learners are best placed to go straight into employment, and some of our learners are best placed to go into apprenticeships following their courses. So it's very much about the needs of the individual, but we do kind of promote the supported internship as the final step in the hub pathway. Where our colleges are running their own supported internships, we support our hub learners to go through. Where they might not be, we are supporting them to link in with other supported internship opportunities, such as our Hampshire Achieves programme, our Hampshire Achieves supported internship programme in Hampshire County Council, but we've also got Project Choice and colleges that provide along there. So what I'm going to do next is share a clip briefly about a supported internship opportunity from our recent Education Training Foundation online event. So this is from Chris from Mindstead Trust, and I think this is the best way to talk about how supported internships work and how they've been, because Chris and Mindstead Trust, linked to the Lily and Lime Cafe, are all based in Portsmouth, and they do some really great placements. And Chris, as an employer and a lead on apprenticeships and supported internships for Mindstead Trust, talks so passionately about this. I want to share his words with you directly rather than telling you the story. So let's see, fingers crossed, this will work.
one of the ideas from today that you will be developing as you attend the workshop is the idea that today is about what you can do for our learners and our.
It started again, I think, Tony.
So
some people can't hear.
Is there a problem? Sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people can't hear. I don't know why. I can hear perfectly well, and Carol can. I don't know whether maybe we have a summary of what he's saying, or maybe we send it out with the slides when we send them out.
That's fine. I'll skip it and I'll send out the video link. So Chris was basically talking in that video about the benefits of ensuring job carving for SEND young people and making sure we're balancing our own expectations of what a good job looks like against what SEND young people are looking for within a good job. I'm not going to be able to say it as succinctly and as passionately as Chris does within that, but I will share the link with you. And he talks very much about how we can best work with employers to ensure that we are finding and doing some of that job carving work to ensure the best for our young people.
That's brilliant, thank you.
So growing our partnership working. So Chris's case study, and when you read it, you'll see this, is very much about how we grow and work with our partners to ensure the best for everyone involved. And how we do that is by ensuring that we have open communication with those and finding those shared outcomes. So engaging businesses on their level is very much what we try and do through their peers in business. So making sure we've got passionate and engaged businesses sharing with other businesses, and utilising supplier chains and contracts and providers within our engaged businesses to get them engaged. All of us have business relationships. We all have suppliers, procured services, other departments that can support us with meeting our needs regarding employer engagements for SEND young people. And going to their businesses and engaging with them on their level and taking a business that's engaged with you to answer those questions and be able to help them overcome those challenges in their own language. And where it's not possible, we bring them remotely. And I have another video, a very short one, from Charlie from the construction sector. But what I'll do is I'll skip over that video, seeing as only some people can hear it. And you guys can watch that afterwards. But Charlie outlines around the business benefits. So it's really great for us to be able to support young people. And we like to see the benefits and the positives to support those young people. But it's also really good to be able to share with them what the profitability elements are to it, the productivity around their staff, and making sure that they can understand the benefits of support in a language that they can support getting signed off by their management and governors. So being aware of the employment market and recovery trends and the current skills gap is also really important. So we do work around ensuring we're aware of what recruitment opportunities are coming out and how we can best support those young people to meet those gaps in our current skills market. And we're lucky enough to have our Employment and Skills Hub that work alongside us to do some of that work in engaging employers and colleges. And as I said, having those shared outcomes and understanding between young people, employers and providers really helps us to engage and have that real partnership approach between all of those people to have good shared outcomes. So I am going to call it quits there. I kept having the slides taken over, so I'm assuming there was a technical problem somewhere externally to me. So I do apologise for that. But that's it. My contact details are on the slides, which I'll share, and I'm happy to talk through anything else. I think I've got 3 minutes left on my allotted time, so if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Tony. and I do apologise. You seem to be blighted with technical issues, don't you, since the outset with this? So, but thank you. It's really interesting to hear what you're doing, and also good to know that they are getting such a good geographic spread. So brilliant. Thank you, Paula.
Oh yes, hello. Just
hello there. Oh, we've lost you again.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I kind of clicked too quickly, don't I? Hello, Tony Marie. I didn't actually pick up first of all where you're from, what your organisation is. I know you said Hampshire.
I know, I didn't actually introduce myself at the beginning of that, did I?
I'm not criticising.
No, I'm a development manager for Send Employability with the Skills and Participation programme at Hampshire County Council.
Right, so well, that's great, because that leads me on to the next question, which is, I mean, looking at your programme, it looks fantastic. It looks very well thought out. You've got some, I've been pinching your slides so I can go back and have a read of them later on. What kind of size of team have you got working on this? And have you got, I mean, have the council actually given you a budget funding to help this work?
So as far as the internal team that does Send Employability Hubs, that's me. But obviously I work really closely with our Employment and Skills Hub, who do employer engagements for our young people-led programmes. So I do a lot of work with them. And really my job is around supporting and developing the colleges. So helping them develop and look at their curriculums and embed those supported employment principles within there. So a lot of the credit for the good work on the programme goes to the engagement and passion of the colleges that are working alongside us on that. Budget-wise, we fund the colleges via their standard high needs funding that they would draw down for EHCP students. So although it's looked at as more a resource fund for the cohort of young people they have on their hubs, it's not drawing down any huge extra amounts of funding. And then I have a small operational budget to provide training opportunities for free to our colleges, and to buy in some support from a supported employment agency to build their capacity and help them along the way. So we haven't got a huge team of 20 or a massive budget going into.
Looking at your presentation, I'd have easily guessed you had a whole sort of pyramid of people, you know, working around and for you.
We've definitely got it's that different management structure where I kind of sit and hold all the pieces, but everyone is being really good about folding this into their kind of business as usual work, and it's about changing how we approach our pathways to employment to Send young people as a whole, rather than, we're kind of seeing it like that, rather than putting an extra layer of stuff on top, how we create an inclusive environment in all by changing approaches rather than adding provisions.
Okay. Oh, thanks very much for that. I'll put my hand down.
I think that sums it up, Tony, by saying that special education needs and disabilities is everybody's business, not just the SEND team. And I think that's what you're achieving. So brilliant, thank you. If there are no other questions for Tony, we'll move on to our next speaker. And I'd like to introduce Gareth Ivatt and his colleague Carol Wilson-Frizzell. And they're both from Creating Tomorrow College in Daventry. Is that right? Gareth, I'm not sure if you're in Daventry or the college is somewhere else, but I'm sure people.
Yeah, I'm representing both at the moment. Can everybody see the presentation at the moment or not?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
You can. Okay, and is that moving on a slide? There we go. Yes, it is. Okay. Firstly, Ellen, thank you very much for inviting us to share what we do. At the moment, we were asked not so long ago to actually share the journey that we've been on and of how we embed employability into our curriculum as well. So, sorry, let me introduce myself first. Sorry, rewinding a little bit. My name's Gareth Ivatt. I'm the head teacher of Daventry Hill School and also the strategic lead of Creating Tomorrow College. I've also joined by Carol. Are you with us, Carol?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Carol Wilson-Frizzell and I'm Director of Creating Tomorrow College.
Yeah, So we very much put together a bit of a presentation about our journey over the last 4 or 5 years, what our thinking is, and the sorts of strategies we've used to not only embed employability, but initially to raise student engagement with employability as well, because that's really the starting point, is to ensure that students engage with the whole subject of employability. So to tell you a little bit about who we are, we're 2 organisations within Creating Tomorrow Academies Trust. It's a SEND trust based in Northamptonshire. We've got 4 schools at the moment. So we've got Daventry Hill School, which I'm the head teacher of, which is an all-through cognition and learning school. We've got Creating Tomorrow College, which is a 16 to 25 SBI college. Isbrook and Wren Spinney are cognition and learning schools. Wren Spinney more PMLD. And Windmill Hill is a school that we opened this year. Again, it's a cognition and learning and communication and interaction school based in Luton as well. And we'll shortly be joined by another couple of special schools as well. So we're starting to grow, which actually just strengthens our ability to be able to support our students into employment. So all we're going to talk about today, though, is the 2 organisations that myself and Carol work for and work with, Creating Tomorrow and Daventry Hill School. So I'm going to start with Daventry Hill School. We have a look at what our organisational purpose is, because it's really clear that all organisations, to be successful, need that vision and that purpose. And Daventry Hills is really, really simple. We want to create happy, successful adults, whatever that looks like for our students. We do have a breadth of students of needs at Daventry Hill, and successful adult life looks different for one student than it will look for a more cognitively able student than a student with PMLD. So we have to provide quite a breadth in our curriculum for those students. Creating Tomorrow College is slightly different. Creating Tomorrow College is an employability focused college. And we're really clear that actually we want our students to be the preferred candidates in their chosen job roles. And actually, more than that, we want employers to actively seek us out. We want to have that reputation within the area that employers recognise that we upskill our students to benefit their organisations. Doing that's quite a big job as well. So I'm just going to rewind a little bit and just touch on our journey as a school, and actually this journey started in one of our other schools. It was in Isbrook Sen College, or Isbrook School as it's called now, in Kettering. It started back in 2016, and we recognised that actually our post-16 curriculum wasn't fit for purpose. It didn't deliver the intent that we wanted. We really realised that it needed to be meaningful and worthwhile for all students, and actually it was PFA that was going to deliver those worthwhile and meaningful outcomes. It was a very much an accreditation subject-based offer for students at that point. So we scrapped it. We got brave and we scrapped the whole curriculum and started again. But we designed it using ex-student and parent voice. What we did is we revisited students that had left within the last 5 years and basically asked 2 questions. You've been out in the real world, you've been out there, what have you succeeded with and what has failed? What should we have taught you and what didn't we need to teach you, because we needed to create that capacity. So again, we're going back to those 2 words, worthwhile and meaningful. The biggest problem, once we had all this data, because we had curriculum content then, as soon as we'd done that piece of work, we had significant amount of curriculum content, was how on earth do we deliver that? What we really realised, though, is employability needed to be that driver for us. The 4 strands are equally as important. However, employability needed to be that main driver for the curriculum, and we needed to wrap the other 4 strands around the employability. Why was that essential? Well, we know that the most recent data that I saw yesterday was that 5.1% of adults with learning difficulties are actually employed and 65% would like to be employed. It's quite worrying that just prior to the pandemic, I believe it was 80% would have liked to have been employed. So we've lost 15% of that desire to be employed, which is a concern. There's obviously been a significant impact of the pandemic there as well. Why? Because we know that adults with learning difficulties in employment have increased income, improved mental health and well-being, improved self-esteem, greater confidence, and actually a raft of benefits. Another benefit is that an adult with learning difficulties that isn't employed and on benefit costs the taxpayer between £1 and £3 million a year as well. So actually there's more of a social impact as well. We really questioned ourselves at this point, going, have we been doing our job right? We were in a school that, if we were using Ofsted criteria, was good. I think it was good at the time, could have been outstanding at the time, but actually, was it really? Because we were part of that problem. We were part of that 5.1 or 4.8%, whatever it was at the time. We were part of that. Our education wasn't delivering outcomes for adulthood, realistic outcomes for adulthood, or exceptionally, outcomes for adulthood. So we know that we needed to address that. The matrix for measuring what was outstanding was wrong for us. So how do we do it? So it all starts with PCP meetings, person-centred planning meetings, because we realised that because the outcome for all students is different, we needed to provide a completely and utterly personalised journey, which is easier to do in post-16 than pre-16 as well. During those meetings, we identified the skills, talents and abilities of the students, because actually what we needed to be unpicking is, what are you good at? You're going to be successful in adult life if you're doing something that you're actually good at. What are you interested in as well? If you're interested in something different than you are actually good at, do we need to upskill you? Because again, in employment, in adult life, if you're interested in it, you're going to sustain that employment. We identify the career aspirations and work experience. We take on board their work experience requests as well during that meeting. We identify their independent living goals. And what we do, obviously, because all stakeholders are in that meeting, what we do is we gain buy-in and support from all stakeholders so they can support that student in the middle. This is really important, really important, because they need that circle of support as they go through. Post-16 in this instance, we've now actually at Daventry Hill School shifted our PCP meetings down to year 9 to support the EHCP review at year 9. And actually we've got plans to move it down even further to year 7 at the moment, and just really start working on that personalised journey from year 7 onwards. What happens from there, though, is we create vocational profiles from all of that information that we gather at that PCP meeting. We build a vocational profile, which we can then build the curriculum offer for that student to ensure that that we're meeting the outcomes. We're identifying the outcome first, so we can build the curriculum offer towards that outcome. Over to you, Carol.
Thanks, Gary. I think Tony touched on this in her presentation about the use of vocational profiles. We find these really useful, as it gives us the starting point for each individual. So it identifies their work-related aspirations, their goals, the support needs. And if we have this right at the beginning, we can actually personalise and tailor the curriculum offer around this. So, for example, we could have focused work experience in our chosen career path. We can look at additional industry-specific awards, so like CSCS cards for construction, or basic food hygiene for, we have a young lady who wants to be a baker. So having this tool at the beginning really helps us identify and plan that young person's journey from the start of their college place. We'll get 3 different performers here just to match the student's ability, so that they can all be involved at the correct level.
Yeah, apologies, Carol, I didn't take it on for you there. My fault. So what we needed to deliver employability education was a model, because employability very handily separates itself into two very, very clear areas. You've got the curriculum side of it as well, but then you've also got the experience of the world of work, and we know that the curriculum supports the ability to be successful in the experience of the world of work. But also we recognise while we were developing the model that actually different students will need a different level of experience of the world of work. So we started looking at how can we start building levels so students can build upon prior experiences and prior learning to support them through that journey towards full-time employment. So looking at this is the Creating Tomorrow College model. The school models are slightly different. However, we've got 3 levels of curriculum as well, building upon each other, just developing the knowledge base of how to gain employment, what employment should look like when you do gain it. But actually, the experience of the world of work is the key thing that we have actually found makes the biggest difference. So in our model, we have our level 1 is enterprise, and everybody, we'll talk about enterprise in a minute, but everybody experiences enterprise. We also ensure that all of our students access level 2 as well, which is experiencing the day in a life of. So that's just going into a workplace, recognizing its difference. Feel it, be around, watch behaviours in the workplace, have a look at the expectations in the workplace. It does feel different. Just preparing them then for our level 3, which is your traditional block of work experience, a 1 week, 2 week placement somewhere. Level 3 has value. But in isolation, it doesn't really have too much value. It actually should be part of a package of experience of the world of work. The level 4 is what we operate in post-16 and beyond. So extended work experience is for those students that actually potentially their drop-off point out of post-16 is into the world of work, or at least 1 year after post-16 they might be in the world of work. So we're really giving a breadth of experience and a volume of experience. So post-16 students might experience 2, maybe 3 days a week work experience. The balance of that, they will be receiving the other strands of PFA in post-16 at that point. Level 5 is our supported internships. As well, our model of supported internships is 5 days. So what we would classify, I understand that obviously 3 days is recognised as a support internship, but within our model that would be extended work experience. Very, very powerful having that 5 days. And if our students do actually access a supported internship, we ensure that they do not come back to the school site, or they don't come back to the college site, because it's that step into adulthood at that point. All the education is delivered off site, exams are taken off site. They've effectively been supported by us for that 1 year staging gap into employment. Level 6 is inclusive apprenticeships, which we don't currently offer. However, that is in our trajectory within the college at some point. So just to briefly look at our employability curriculum, you can see that's our employability curriculum at the college and in post-16 at the moment. So you can see how things build upon each other. One of the ethos behind it is that we actually focus on what we believe the students need to know, and not what the accreditation tells us. So we're not driven by accreditation, because that gives us the flexibility to actually deliver what students need to know and want to know as well. And what we do is we pick up accreditation from that. So we don't plan to accreditation at all, which also gives us creativity. And we attempt to be creative to give our students an advantage in the workplace, and we'll go through a few things that we do to attempt that. You can see this is the Daventry Hill one as well at the moment. So as I said, Daventry Hill is an all-through school. So the organisation of the curriculum is, you can see that we've got our steps, and we've got an overarching ethos for every single stage towards adulthood. So in Foundations for Learning, which is our early years and Key Stage 1, we just learn through playful experience. Key Stage 2, we learn about ourselves. Key Stage 3, we learn, actually, once we've learned about ourselves, where do I fit in the world, my place in the world. Level 4 is actually developing those skills for life. And Key Stage 5, our Foundations for the Future, is that post-16 model where we personalise towards those targeted outcomes. On the right-hand side, you can see, though, our employability curriculum is mapped all the way from early years. That's a graphic just to show the input that we believe our students need all the way from early years to support the drop-off points up here. So we've got drop-off points post-16, year 13 onwards, and then obviously into the college as well. So you can see that that's just a raft of activities to support curriculum content as well. This is completely key. This has been one of the foundations for our success. So we realised very, very early on that we were talking a good game about employability, but we needed to put our money where our mouth was. So what we did, this is Stacey, she's our careers and employability leader. What we wanted was a qualified teacher. We wanted her to gain level 6 careers advisor. And actually the biggest thing is we wanted her out of the classroom because she was a teacher at the time, so she was full-time working on this. And the reason that we wanted her working on this was we wanted her to lead the employability curriculum, which obviously included Gatsby compliance, obviously give the careers advice and guidance to all of our students as well. But very much one of her tasks is to create business links, so we can create that experience of the world of work. We can have employers visiting. It's completely key that we give this role the time that it needs and the money that it needs as well, for those of you that manage budgets. The other thing that Stacey is tasked to do for us is to actually work with employers to become disability confident. We recognise that it's not very purposeful us doing all of this work to support students to be skilled enough to gain and sustain employment if employers aren't ready for that, because it will just fail. So part of Stacey's role is to actually work with employers, work on their disability confidence, so they're ready for our students when they are ready to enter that world of work as well, which is, it's a completely key role for success, we believe. However, what does it look like in the classroom? What does it look like in the classroom? And this has been our biggest challenge, is what does it look like in early years and primary? Because that's that early engagement. What we do there is we've got a curriculum in place, but actually one of the tools that we use and we've devised is something that we call career detectives. So career detectives is used to create that engagement and encourage exploration into different careers. So you can see the pictures on the right hand side, or hopefully you can. Each one of those contains toys, it contains equipment, so students can play within certain sectors as well. They can play hair and beauty, they can play construction, they can play people that help us. So that's the care industry. You can see that we've got several at the moment crossing several different sectors. They also come with a series of lesson plans for teachers, support for teachers, and success criteria as well. So basically what we've now got is a range of resources for our primary students to learn through play, but it's meaningful play as well, and they're just starting to expose themselves to those separate sectors that in Key Stage 3 and 4 they'll explore in a lot more detail. These boxes are managed by our post-16 students. We don't allow adults to manage these, so the distribution of them, the refreshing them when things go missing or get broken, etc. And the next step is, because they've been so successful, they've worked really well this year. We only launched them in September. Is that we've tasked our post-16 students to actually come up with the strategy to market them and sell them to other schools. As well. So what it's done is it's created a really nice enterprise project for our post-16 students as well. Enterprise is completely key to us, and the way that we do it at Daventry Hill School is every single secondary class from year seven has their own business. They immerse themselves in business, and a lot of education is actually delivered through that. All of the enterprise is student led. We try our best not to stunt student creativity at all. It's all their ideas. And actually it's proved to be to provide a rich source of valuable learning, but that it's okay to fail. Some of their enterprise projects fail. However, the learning that they've done from that failure, or that they gained from that failure, actually really supports that next enterprise project as well. And especially as we're doing this from year 7 onwards, the growth from 7 to into post 16, the skills development that they've learned during that period is significant. We fund it either through the school budget or the Peter Jones Foundation as well. We've been lucky enough to secure full funding this year for all of our enterprise projects through the Peter Jones Foundation. We encourage real world routes to market. I know a lot of enterprise projects within schools sell to the schools, sell to the students. However, we really want to push it to the next level. So we've obtained a market stall, and our students sell through the market stall, and we host business fairs where our students have stalls, but also local businesses have them as well. So our students are mixing with people that are running their own businesses anyway and competing against them. We also ensure that 50% of all enterprise is social enterprise as well, because it's that we want to give back to that local community as well, and we challenge our students to be able to do that as well, or to think around that. And we've now introduced to our primary classes as well. So we're supporting, which has really supported teacher understanding of the power of enterprise. Again, they're delivering a lot of their learning through enterprise now as well. Other things that we do is employer engagement days as well. So we have days off, just purely days off timetable, purely looking at with different employability focuses. So yes, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we had a day, and the pictures there, we had students were tasked to and staff dressed up from jobs that existed in the past, are in the present, or the future. Everyone tended to choose the past as well, but it was just a fun day for people to start again that dialogue around, well, what is that job, what was that job, what does that look like now, why is it doesn't exist anymore, what jobs might be coming up in the future. We bring in motivational speakers. We have industry days where businesses come and visit the sites and talk to the students about their industries. The DWP and Barclays are very supportive, so they complement and reinforce our curriculum as well. We do National Skills Day, Apprenticeship Week, STEM Festival with the university, and we work very closely with the Rotary Club. So we have quite a lot of time where we move off timetable and deliver learning through employability, because it's our curriculum driver. Working with employers is really important as well. I'm not going to read that blurb at the top, but working with employers, a few things that they do for us or support our students with is they support our students with induction, so and work tours, demonstrations of what they do. They organise job shadowing and work mentors and buddies, especially for our post-16 students. They set work-related projects for our students. So we have industry professionals setting up the projects for students, so it's not teacher based as well. One of the fun things that we've done is a career speed networking, so a bit like speed dating. However, it was employers and students got the opportunity on a very short time to actually ask about careers within their industry as well, which was very successful. We work, support the employer support with the volunteering programme, business enterprise projects, and other job support as well. This is quite new to us this year as well. Well, post-COVID, well, it's not even post-COVID, but as COVID restrictions have reduced and we are starting to access community visits again, we've adjusted our approach to off-site visits, and that's any off-site visits. We now have an expectation for all of our staff to plan for an employability focus for anything that they're doing off-site. And actually, it's part of the off-site visit form. Our staff, if they're leaving site, obviously they have to risk assess. If it's a Zone A trip, they can just fill out a form and leave site because it's covered by generic risk assessment. However, part of that form is what is the employability focus of this trip, and staff must have an employability focus. So that might look like a trip to local park. However, the focus will be that they're exploring all the job roles that they spot on the way. They might see street cleaners, traffic wardens, ground maintenance, etc., etc. And it keeps that employability chatter really, really high while other learning is taking place, therefore embedding it into our practice. We've also got an on-site cafe, which is open to the public. It's run by our post-16 students. It gives us the opportunity to provide real-world work experience, but in a supported environment as well. And students obviously get to experience customer service, food hygiene, cash handling, stock ordering, and management. Right, I'll take a breath and then over to you, Carol. Sorry, that went on longer than I thought it would.
Thanks, Gareth. I am conscious of the time, so I will go through this very quickly. So I'm going to talk to you about this. My IT isn't working. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Right, okay, that's better. So I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about how this actually works at the college. So on an operational level, what is it we do that focuses on employment? So we are very lucky to be based at a place called Chester House Estate, which is in Wellingborough. It is a national heritage site. It has had a Roman site, a Saxon site, an Iron Age. There's archaeological digs going on. It's a very unique site. It is open to the public. So the college has a base here. We opened, thanks, Gareth. We opened the base in September, and Chester House opened to the public in the October half term. So we went from being very quiet to being very, very busy. So we work in partnership with Chester House, and it's quite unique, and it really adds to our success. If you go to the next slide, Gareth. Okay, so Chester House provides amazing opportunities for our students in terms of work experience, employability, having access to professionals. The courtyard is made up of independent traders, and our students complete some work experience in all of these venues, depending on their needs, depending on their ambitions. So back to that vocational profile will depend where we place them. Yeah, so this is just some examples for students. So they're involved in conferencing, admin, hospitality. They have a bed and breakfast, so they have undertaken the cleaning between each clients. Marketing and public relations, so we have Chester House as events, the college is running events under its enterprise, and also land management. So our students have been involved in setting up the car park. They are currently involved in lambing, feeding the baby lambs. So it's a very, very wide range of opportunities. For example, we have this young lady who is interested in catering as a career, and she is working in Chester House Cafe and Restaurant. Yeah, so continued opportunities, there's weddings, there's hospitality, there's site management. We have the ARC building. So some of our students who are interested in history are trained to give tours. They're trained in how to archive the whatever you archive. I forgot the word. The objects. Okay. So they do gardening. They help with the primary school education. They can work in the office and the administration. This is all on site, and it is such an amazing opportunity that we have here. So Mike, Gareth, continue. So we also on site have our own farm shop. So we have employed a shop manager to oversee it, but our students do the day-to-day operation. And in that, it can be anything from greeting customers as their targets to understanding profit and loss. So it's really varied. It's really different levels. It's open 7 days to the public. Students are not keen on coming in at the weekends yet, but we're working on it. All of these opportunities allow our students to build core work experience, core skills and knowledge like team working, how to organise things, effective communication. Okay, Gareth. They're supported in this role by job coaches. So all work experience is supported by qualified job coaches. They act as a link between the employer, the student and the college. They are trained in specific job carving, systematic instructions, which enables them to break down and make sure that our young people have the understanding to meet their needs. They also help them to be as independent as possible. And we try to make a distinction between support in the classroom and support in the workplace. So they're supported by the National Occupational Standards for Job Coaches, which are very, very clearly linked to employment. So for example, one of the standards is to skills match job seekers to the correct job opportunities. Another one of the occupational standards is to advise employers about maintaining and recruiting a diverse workforce. So they're all linked to that.
Carol, I'm conscious, this is the other Carol, just very conscious of the time. This is brilliant stuff, and it's a real shame to, you know, cut you off. Do you think you could just sum up in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, of course. And you can, these slides are available. So the last thing I will say is that employment is 100% what we do. So even our other subjects, English and maths, IT, is always functional. It's always around employability. The learning is completed in the workplace. It's completed through projects. It's completed through experience rather than classroom.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Lots of lovely comments for you already. Thank you, Gareth.
Thanks so much for sharing it.
Brilliant outcomes you've got as well. Really brilliant outcomes there. So on your slide you're showing. So thank you very much. I'm sure there would be people who would like to ask you questions, but I'm really sorry. We need to just allow people to well, we need to let Sophie, who's joined us, actually do her bit, and then perhaps we could take questions for both of you afterwards, if that's all right. So Sophie, are you there?
Hello.
She is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sophie.
Sorry that I'm a little late to the party.
Are you going to share your slides, Sophie? Are you okay?
Yes, of course.
Brilliant.
I'm just going to make sure that I can see everybody as well, because that's how, otherwise I get very confused. I'm operating 3 screens, so if I look confused, it's because I'm manipulating between the 3 of them. Thank you for having me. I'm Sophie Evitts from Brackenfield 10 School. I'm the deputy head here, and I've worked here for a long time, about 8 years. I'm not allowed to consider myself new anymore, but I still feel like that because of the developments that we make and the way that our school operates. So I've come to talk to you about who we are and where our curriculum has taken us, what our ethos and vision is, and some proactive strategies that we take and sort of our key learning when it comes to ensuring that employment lessons and employability and outcomes for pupils are as meaningful and impactful as possible. So who are we? We are a Derbyshire special school, and we have a variety of pupils who range from significantly complex non-verbal ambulant PMLD pupils to pupils with significant cognition and communication needs who are often receptive language and expressive language do not match, and this can be difficult to someone who isn't skilled to be able to communicate effectively and develop the skill set of that individual person. We take two approaches to our curriculum, an informal and a semi-formal approach. Informal approach is about learning to regulate, whether that be regulating with somebody else or self-regulation, finding motivators and making choices. And a semi-formal approach is about doing to learn, and it's this doing to learn cohort who we predict from a trajectory point of view will reach employment in some form in adulthood, and that's our aspiration for them. Regardless of starting point, we are preparing and are passionate about preparing all children for adulthood. And this little diagram at the bottom shows our 4 pathway model. So a semi-formal classroom, what does it look like? I'm just going to show you a little video. Learning is different for this cohort. This is Poplar class, a Key Stage 4 class, Year 10 pupils and Year 11 with 2 Key Stage 5 pupils. This is a typical day of learning within our school.
Sophie, there's no sound that I can hear. Is there supposed to be?
It's only music. So I'll narrate then rather than sing, because you won't want that. What you're seeing are typical aspects of our classroom. So this is travel training. We have travel training, shopping out in the community, and these are daily events. Now, whilst you can learn to cross the same road, no day is going to be the same because of the vehicles, because of the weather, because of how you're feeling, the people that you're with. And so our semi-formal classroom is about experiencing lots of different learning opportunities and utilising the skills that we've already got, but being as independent as possible. Where we have struggles or continued conversations with parents is where we have this learned helplessness with this cohort, and there is more of a list of what students can't do than what they can do. And so what our curriculum really focuses on is decision making, problem solving for individuals. So here, this is making a decision between 2 very indecisive individuals, and this is a real key learning point for them. Now, these are Key Stage 4. Start travel training as young as primary and the EYFS ages. But what I want to show you here is that this is a very typical day. We are out in lots of different aspects of the community and making those decisions to cross the road ourselves. We're all at different points. This is very similar to being out in supermarkets. Supermarkets are very different for us. You're going to use the same skills as buying items, but it's very different in Asda to that of Tesco, to Aldi. And so the reason this relates to preparation for adulthood is for that reason that all 4 aspects of preparation for adulthood are interlinked. And so if our young people don't understand what good health should look like for them, they don't necessarily know how to ask for help or how to access that. If they haven't got good health, they can't necessarily access their community and do that independently. From that, being able to access the community, can they truly be independent if they can't access the community or understand its worth? And then that you need to be as independent as possible to have the most meaningful, accessible and aspirational employment opportunities. And so
I'm sorry to interrupt. The signal appears to be breaking up. People are having difficulty hearing. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just drifted off. Let's try.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you, but you keep cutting out. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I can't do anything about my Wi-Fi. I can't do anything about that.
Try again.
At school.
Try again.
Okay, so the video that I've shown you is about is to highlight that our curriculum is focused on those 4 areas of preparation for adulthood. So we are aspirational for health outcomes of young people. They need to know how to look after themselves when they need that help, but also to ensure that they've got secure well-being, mental health, self-esteem and resilience. Without that knowledge of good health and how to look after themselves, to the very basic needs of knowing what I like and don't like and being able to make choices, they won't be able to access the community then. So then we need to look at community learning. Once we know what we like, we need to know how to go and get it out in the community. Once we're out in the community, we need to be able to keep leaning forward as picks up my voice better. Okay. I'm going to move my camera because that's got my speaker on it.
Technical issues are a nightmare, aren't they?
It's a really big
Hopefully
face. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
It is.
Okay, my face is very large. I'm not too happy about this, but it's all in vital need of getting a message across, so it's okay. In order to access the community successfully, we have to do it lots and lots, and we have to do it in communities that are accessible to us, and it has to be our community and realistic in terms of spaces that we will continue to access, that we can access on our own and with families. Once we've accessed the community and we've established those relationships with who we consider to be our closest peers, we might not have friends, but we will have people that are familiar to us. Then we can begin to do things as independently as possible, because once you've got that true level of independence, that's when you will move on to being able to have the right set of employability skills to mean that you can access the right employment for yourself. In terms of qualifications that we offer to paint the picture, in a very same way to the last school that was talking, we aren't led by our qualifications. What our qualifications do is complement our curriculum offer. We're not driven by the qualifications that we offer. There's no exam focus. If anything, it's the exact opposite. And actually, what we want to do is we want to ensure that pupils are prepared for every aspect of preparation for adulthood, from their starting point to their destination point, and that we celebrate that success. And so that it's going to look very different for every individual child and young person, but it's important that that is replicated and that there is a robust way to showcase that skill set. And employers do recognise these qualifications. As a school, we're quite forward thinking, and we work with Open Awards, and they ask us for, probably because we're quite vocal, for lots of feedback on what would make qualifications more meaningful. And how qualifications complement the workplace, etc. So we think of ourselves as sort of that bridging that gap between employers and the awarding organisations. And Open Awards are one of only a few that do that have the status to deliver functional skills, and so we have that option there if that's accessible to the students. But often the functional skill might have too higher level thinking skills to be accessible to our cohort. So our Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 provision is currently a work in progress that is incredibly aspirational and shouts very loud about it within the local authority about what we want to do for our young people and the gaps in the market within Derbyshire. We're on the border between Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, and we sit in an incredibly we're so close to the airport, so I can literally see the airport and a power station where we are. We've got so many businesses and entities in the locality that would complement an employability study programme and allow our pupils to access those real life learning opportunities that add the greatest value to their lifelong outcomes. And so what we are very, very aware of is that you have to be prepared in all 4 areas of preparation for adulthood in order to make the most secure impact on your employment opportunities, and also to know what you want. Because if you, in the same way that you need to work through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and our curriculum is very much based upon those 2 areas, if you don't know what you want or what you like, or you've never been given the opportunity to make those choices, how are you going to continue that and maintain that into adulthood? And so promoting that element of voice and choice is vitally important for our young people, as alongside ensuring that we've got that well-being and mental health proactive strategies to look after ourselves. We are keen that we provide a specialist provision that focuses, as I said, on preparing young people with SEND for employment, which before it brings the caveat of those preparation for adulthood areas. what we're also incredibly keen on is working with post-16 and post-19 providers to ensure there is a county-wide offer of employment focus, because it doesn't, Derbyshire is the most bizarre county in terms of its shape, and it's really there are very difficult transport networks across the county, but before that we don't have there isn't much option in terms of SEND provision. So what we are keen to do is ensure that there is a SEND provision and that students have the choice of where to go. And also we need to ensure that all 4 areas of preparation for adulthood have the services accessible to these young people as well. And what we know is that there are lots of struggles and battles in social care, but what we also know is if that support is proactive rather than reactive, it catches young people and families before they reach crisis point, in order to be able to offer them that help that means that they maintain their independence as much as possible and good health as much as possible. So that is our partnership working, and we work hard to ensure that we educate parents as to what those offers and services are, and we educate young people. Good health. So what does good health look like for our young people? We are ensuring sorry, I just need to pull my notes off. So learners access the gym with friends, and they're developing those self-care techniques and promoting physical exercise. We access cooking lessons, and they're modelled on making healthy choices, promoting pupil voice and problem-solving skills, as well as developing independence within the home and in the kitchen. Health and wellbeing lessons focus on self and co-regulation, looking after mental health, as I've said already, and physical health, and making choices about how we do this, because it will be different in different circumstances. This includes enrichment aspects like art and music and online activities to support learners having a bank of techniques to look after themselves. Learners meet and explore the health services available to them, as I'd said just before, supporting their health needs, including appointments and registering for services that they might like to access within the community. Currently, our Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 learners mix for mix for about 50% of their timetable, and this is an opportunity to develop friendships and peers in lots of different learning and social activities. Learners go to the gym with their peers, as you'd have seen in a previous photo, and they're given the experience of accessing the local community and developing transferable skills with familiar and unfamiliar people. They take part in lots of community projects. As the previous at school have said, enterprise projects are really important, and it's that starting and finishing of a project that promotes interest and sparks of interest and skills and unseen leadership that you would never experience if it wasn't for it sparking some interest in an individual in an enterprise project. We do what we call Let's Stay Safe lessons, and these look at personal safety in the real world as well as in the online world, and learners are exploring relationship dynamics here and conflicts in managing relationships, as well as sex education, focusing on consent really appropriately and positive sexual attitude and self-image. We have a partnership with the LGBT+ Derbyshire, who come and talk to our pupils and staff about different aspects of sexuality and areas that might be confusing, because that can really impact on mental health, as well as establishing secure relationships. And as I said before, the lifelong focus of our friends, relationship and community work is about that self and co-regulation and taking part in discipline coaching to prepare for employment, and developing as much resilience as possible. So the independent living, including travel training, we're looking at cooking lessons, where the independence is absolutely key here, and the repetition, and then problem solving if we're missing ingredients or we're cooking for somebody with an allergy, etc., etc. Pupils will discuss healthy choices and have opportunities to make these independently, and they visit lots of different food venues over lunchtime periods, because it's really easy to eat the same thing every single day, and it's really easy to eat what you know, and particularly with our cohort we have lots of sensory aversions to food. Food is it's either a huge motivator or a huge area of it can cause some real significant behaviours, and so we attempt as much as possible to ensure that there is a healthy relationship with food, understanding where to access it, understanding the varied need of a healthy diet, etc. We focus on accessing the world because it's their world as much as ours, and travel training is a huge part. So it sounds like it's only one thing, just training to travel, but actually travel training is embedded into visits to the park, soft play for our younger students, local cafe, library visits, lots of different bus routes, visiting employers as well. We access cycling, walking, trains, trams, buses and taxis, and they sometimes will choose their own destinations because they want to go somewhere and they're motivated and inspired to do so. And then employment. So what does that look like? So within Key Stage 4 and some Year 9s, dependent upon their complexity of need and ability to access the work, learners will access lots of different employers. Every week we have an employers carousel, and it works best when we have one employer for 2 or 3 weeks, and they will come in and introduce themselves, and then they will do a project alongside the students where you will do an aspect of vocational profiling, very low level, to work on different skills within the groups to create sort of projects to then present back. And these work really effectively. We've done one with National Grid, we're about to do one with Severn Trent, and we did one with Wilmot Dixon, who are a construction company as well. And these are valuable experiences. The teachers and teaching assistants often take a step back to ensure that the communication is between the employer and the students. And we need to follow a code of conduct, but this code of conduct was created between students and employers, and students want to be able to show their best selves, and so we want to make sure that this reflects workplace experiences. So we discuss things like discipline of social media, timekeeping, sickness, safety and attitudes, etc., and also what we're good at, and profiling against these and preferences. And we're developing informed careers decisions. Often our young people, 70% of our Key Stage 4 cohort have one or no parents in employment and don't have those role models within the workplace. We had lots of issues with parents losing jobs within the pandemic, and that thirst for employment and that desire to want a job being very intimidating and scary for families. And so we are passionate about ensuring our learners are educated so that they know the benefits for themselves about having a job and the benefits that it would then add to their families as well. So with that in mind, that overarching understanding of the different aspects of PFA for us in school, this is the sort of timetabled sessions that you would see. So what you can see from an employment perspective is that there are lots and lots of different opportunities, and these will be greater or less dependent upon the interest and the area of need for the individual. So if I've got a young person who's struggling to regulate with significantly high anxiety and won't communicate with anybody, their employment aspects are going to be less about them talking to employers and more about them understanding what different jobs are. The focus will be getting them into the community and looking after themselves, because they are the fundamental skills to being able to be successful into adulthood. What we know, and what is always very eye-opening for parents and a change for parents, every single child that comes to our school has got an education healthcare plan, and I'm sure you know that the process to get an education healthcare plan is lengthy, is incredibly demoralising for lots and lots of families, and involves lots of fighting. And often what parents can do, and are discussed most, is what their child can't do, and what they won't ever be able to do. And from a child joining us from the very beginning, we are always looking at motivators, regulators, and their strengths, and utilising these strengths, because as Ellen says in everything I've listened to her really when she does her conferences, people can do much more than you give them credit for. And that is so true of young people with SEND. And I think we've been shocked sometimes as to the spikiness of profiles of our young people. we ensure that the personalised approach promotes this strength and this and developing stronger foundations through these strengths and interests and motivators and drivers. Why do these young people want to do what they're doing? What is the driver? What is the motivator? And that might be that could be something really off the wall. That could be something like vehicles. I've got a young girl who has a scripted response as soon as she meets you. She needs to know whether your car has alloys, what shapes those alloys are, the colour of your car seats, and whether it's a manual or an automatic car. You need to get over those first 4 questions first, and then as you begin to talk to her, what you establish is that she's grown up with vehicles because mum and dad are taxi drivers, and that actually when it comes to vehicles she knows exactly where things should be, and she's really motivated by cars. So it won't surprise you that this year 9 student has expressed an interest in being a valeter or working at a car showroom, which is so realistic and so achievable for her. We're really passionate about supporting her to that opportunity of being able to be around cars because she loves them. I have an ex-student who, until he had about 6 months left in year 11, was still living in a very mixed world of reality and fantasy, and wanted to go to Harry Potter's School of Hogwarts. And we are incredibly dignified and supportive in our responses, and his passion for Harry Potter was immense. But what was really important was that we gave him the real life opportunities to be able to transfer that passion into a different area, and actually magic became his thing, and he liked magic and he liked books, and he was supporting within a library. He was supporting as a library assistant once he left us. Not that we organised, that's not said. However, I'm just trying to show you the broad spectrum of the children that we have.
Susan, I'm sorry, you're running out of time. We are due to have a comfort break in about 2 minutes. So
okay, not to worry. I've got 4 slides, so I'll be super quick.
Okay.
What in terms of my young person who liked Hogwarts, and my other person who likes cars, to be realistic and holistic are key areas that you need to remember in the back of your mind in terms of aspiration, because what you don't want to be doing is being over the top aspirational that someone's going to be a pilot when actually they're not able to access several of the different stages before they get there. But it doesn't mean that your aspiration can't be realistic and shouldn't be realistic. So the next strategy, and then the next thing that we do by the bucketful, is we're as proactive as we possibly can be. We build solid foundations in our relationships with pupils. They know we're approachable. They can access how we communicate with them, and we ensure that we've built that foundation for them. We repeat learning in lots of different contexts. We might sabotage that learning. How do I get employers on board so that they will actually deliver jobs for the students? I'll tell you that in a sec. Sabotage and change the context for learning. So what's really important is that students' learning is taken into lots of different contexts, because if it isn't, when there comes to something changing, that skill isn't then transferable. So it needs to be absolutely concrete and independent as possible. What we need to do as adults supporting these young people is preempt unpredictable changes and prepare and make our students as resilient for those as possible. But they might not understand why a change happens, but they know what to do when a change happens. And it's that solution focused, when this happens, do this, that really supports our young people's resilience, and also knowing who to talk to. Ensuring staff understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Total systematic instruction training was fundamental to get those hard to reach staff who weren't quite sure what we were doing or why we were doing it or how we were going to make progress. Total systematic instruction training really highlighted the independence that you can develop in young people who have incredibly complex needs, that they can do things that you might not realise they can do. Our employer partnerships. We are a small school, And as it stands, we've spoken to lots and lots of big employers, and often their work comes from their social corporate responsibility. So therefore, it might be a bit service level. It might be a bit surface level in terms of they come and do a presentation and then they give you some handouts about apprenticeships. That doesn't work for our pupils because you can meet them once and then they've forgotten who you are. Our most impactful work has been with small businesses, but what we have to do a lot first, and what I'm very proud of us as a school for doing, is we have to sell that vision to the employer and tell them how it's going to add value. As a school, we do not expect the employer to do all of the work because they've got a business to run. So it is our job to bridge that gap, and it's our job to promote that. So I'm quite outward facing in that respect, and I do a lot of work for D2N2, our local enterprise partnership, in offering SEND masterclasses to advise employers on, like, these are the strengths that you'll find, but actually this is how you make an inclusive employer and an employment opportunity. And I'm a bit scared of big employers, if I'm totally honest, because you have to work to the right people, don't you? You have to ensure that you've got the right people in the right places, even if the ethos is right. So it's really about picking those employers. And what we do is we categorise employers into these 3 risk categories. So we have low risk internal placements, or they might be with other special needs schools or regular contractors, and that they are low risk, and they're ones that we know we can put the most complex students in, and there will be a benefit and an impact of it. We have medium risk employers who have got some SEND experience, but we offer the support in the workplace. And what the job coach needs to do is, whilst they're supporting the young person, they're also the key contact for the employer, and job carving is really appropriate. Now, what an employer doesn't want to think is, an employer doesn't want to think, hang on, you're just creating jobs for no reason. Actually, what our job is to do is for them to tell us their needs, and for us to work out, okay, well, this type of role would really benefit you. So it's about adding benefit and not causing the burden. So that's where, when we say completing a workplace audit, it's that type of thing. It's about thinking outside of the box, and the support that we put in place for that. And patience. So patience and perseverance are key. I think lots of people work with us because we talk to them so much, and just, you know, they feel that that's the easiest way that they can shut us off, is to work with us. But we're very passionate about ensuring that we get as much out of it for our young people as possible. And we help them restore issues, and we help them restore problems. If there's been an issue or a crisis within an employer, it's important that we have that full circle, and we don't just come away from it, because anyone can have a crisis, can't they? Because every single human, and possibly animals, have a mental health. Every single human, and everyone has good and bad days. However, not everyone has SEND, and the guilt and the shame and the vulnerability and the paranoia that comes with having SEND and having a crisis is much more complex and requires much more restorative approaches to manage, and so that's really important that we advocate in that respect as well.
Sophie, is this your last slide?
Yes, it is. I was just about to say these are 2 examples of timetables. So if you wanted to go through this in more detail, I would be happy to share that with you. And Ellen's got my PowerPoint. And these are just 2 students who wouldn't have accessed employment if it wasn't for the provision that we put around them. And actually, you know, we aim for them to have really fantastic employment opportunities into adulthood. If you are keen to talk that through, then please get in touch. My contact details are here. We do visits. We can do Teams calls, anything like that.
Brilliant.
And that's it from me.
Thanks, Sophie.
You're welcome.
So if I ask Suzanne and Jed to just introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful.
Certainly, thank you. Thank you very much, both of you, for allowing us to come and speak to you this afternoon. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. There's been some technical problems in all team meetings I've been in today. And if you're like me, you was in the earlier DFE meeting regarding supported internships. I think we've had a long day of lots of presentations and lots of information to take on board. So we're probably all getting to very tired at this point of the day. Just a very quick introduction. I'm Suzanne Davis, High Needs Funding and Target Employment Manager in Essex County Council. I have a matrix brief. I sit across children and young people's families. Social care team, working closely with our adults social care teams as well as education, and I also work very closely with economic growth and inclusive employment, inclusive economic development as well. I have 4 target employment officers that work alongside me. I'll let Jeffro introduce himself, but I always have Tina, Emma and Jonathan. And actually this pathway we're about to talk about, the inclusive apprenticeship, is Jonathan's pathway, but he's on a week's leave this week, very well deserved week's leave. But yeah, so I hope I do his slides justice. But and we'll cover everything needed. Essex County Council has a job coach as well. We have our own job coach. We're very proud of having our own job coach because it's part of the employment journey. So I'm going to allow Jeffro to kick off a little bit, introduce himself, and then I'll come in a few slides down to give some more detail about the inclusive apprenticeships. Over to you, Jeffro.
Suzanne, can you tell me whether the slides are up?
I've got the slides, yep.
They are, okay. I can't, for some reason I can't see. So hi everyone, I'm Jeffro. I'm, like Suzanne said, I'm one of the targeted employment officers at Essex County Council, and I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of the work that we do as a team, and then Suzanne will lead on with the work around inclusive apprenticeships. We as a team, the targeted employment team, work across organisational boundaries, and we're passionate to support job seekers with SEND on their journey into employment. We're ensuring that their vocational aspirations are heard in order to have a bright and ambitious future in what we're looking at as a 21st century job market. And what we're talking about that in Essex is around our green agenda and our growth sectors. We work strategically across education, social care, external stakeholders and employers to develop pathways to employment for young people with SEND. We're not like a traditional supported employment service. We don't work directly with individuals. However, we have done some work over the last year or so with individuals to develop our vocational profile. For those that didn't catch in the intro by Suzanne, there's 4 of us, and we each take a lead on one of the pathways. So we'll go into a bit more depth what those pathways are later. We also have our own in-house job coach, which we're very grateful to have within Essex County Council, and obviously we have Suzanne Davis within the team, who has an interesting matrix function across both education and social care. We spent the last 2 years focusing on these 4 priorities on your screen. So preparing for employment in education, developing an inclusive employer culture, and developing the 4 inclusive pathways, as well as the work around working with job seekers to develop our vocational profile. We've used this initial phase of our operation to develop these 4 priorities and work towards our purpose. To achieve those things there on the screen, we've started to develop our vocational profile and tested it with individuals. This has given us some insight that we required to be able to roll vocational profiling out across our education providers and develop the associated training to go with that. We've also, some of the other ways that we've been working towards these priorities and to achieve our purpose is by championing inclusive employment with employers, and this includes things like embedding the Kickstart scheme across Essex, producing inclusive communications and marketing, setting up an inclusive employment and training webpage, very close and joint working with the Essex County Council economic growth teams, some joint working with Essex County Council social care teams, adult social care teams, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we've been developing our learning disability and autism business grant. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. Partnership working with Essex County Council to support our supported employment providers and the contracts that they deliver. Collaboration with our own Essex County Council entry to work team, securing funding for our digital CVs and data dashboard within education, and finally becoming a key partner in what we call the Essex County Council anchor institutions, which are those large institutions which have a presence within Essex, and we've been instrumental in 2 work streams with them. One is around embedding job coaches into the larger anchor institutions across Essex, and also increasing developing reverse job fairs with those larger employers as well. And through all of that, we've been raising awareness and increased visibility of inclusive employment practices. So we describe our young people's journey a bit like this diagram here. And what we do to facilitate that is to develop these 4 pathways that many of you have mentioned today, and you'll be aware of. So social enterprises or supported businesses, supported internships, traineeships and inclusive apprenticeships. We definitely haven't reinvented the wheel, but we have worked really hard to embed these pathways within Essex and make them become kind of mainstream and known by everyone. So myself, my colleague Tina, as Suzanne said, lead on both supported internships and social enterprises. Jonathan and Emma lead on the traineeships and inclusive apprenticeships. We've worked really closely with Adults Commissioning to develop what has been called the Learning Disability and Autism Business Grant, but will develop into being just called the Supported Business Grant. The aim of that grant was to create more high quality social enterprises and supported businesses across Essex to really enable people with more complex needs to access employment. So the pilot funded 5 businesses, and each business has recruited between 2 and 6 people with additional needs. And the businesses are being supported right from recruitment and selection, even through advertising, right through to onboarding, and then the support continues whilst those individuals are in work through our internal job coach, it's called this. And the posts created have been, what we try to do is we had conversations with over 50 interested businesses in the grant, all who wanted to find a way of employing people with additional needs within their businesses. And we actually had to extend the grant pot to because it was just a pilot, just to include the ones that had such fantastic ideas. But some of the sectors include digital marketing, sports coaching, catering, project assistance in a sensory adaptive uniform business, business administration and therapy assistance. So there's a real diversity of opportunities created in some really aspirational sectors. And in total, the grant managed to create 16 new roles, which were all bring fit for people with learning disabilities and autism. And within the first month of advertising all those roles, they've all been filled. So it was a real demonstration that there was a need for this grant. So in addition to those 5 social businesses funded through the grant, we've also been lucky enough to be able to fund 2 other separate businesses. One is the development of a microbrewery and tap room, which will provide paid employment for 6 individuals with the most complex needs from one of our providers. And we're also piloting the development of another social enterprise, which will be to the proof of concept of having a social enterprise within one of our schools, which is a manufacturing enterprise to manufacture outdoor kitchens. So that's the social enterprise and supported businesses. And many of you will know about the work that is happening across Essex in terms of developing supported internships. My colleague Tina has been working really hard to develop a gold standard across Essex for our supported internships. And we are working with our large Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust and South Essex College to develop a supported internship in Basildon. They've successfully taken on 12 interns last year, and the trust have really embraced the interns. And at the initial meeting with their hiring managers, I think we had about 25 hiring managers in the meeting, and there was an overwhelming response of managers that wanted to take on interns, with facilities who are actually saying that they would like to take on all 12. So that's been really successful, and the supported internship is now developed into its 2nd site, which will go live in September 2022 at Broomfield Hospital. We've also been lucky enough to work with one of our farms in Essex. Obviously, we have a large agriculture and horticulture sector across Essex. We've been working with a biodynamic farm to develop the first biodynamic supported internship. Lauriston Farm and the education provider CCI had just started with one job seeker who had already expressed through many times that he wanted to work in this particular sector. He loved working outdoors. He's a really, really hard worker, and he was doing a day placement at the farm. But we found a way to convert that into a supported internship and then into paid work. So we worked with the farm and supported them to train as supported employment providers using BASE, and they're now being able to deliver a second fully immersive SI with a view to expand to 6 interns in the coming months. So that's an example of how some of the SIs across Essex are developing. My colleague Emma, who's been leading on the development of traineeships, she has managed to develop a number of programs across Essex, these kind of where work experience is kind of at the heart of the placement. So Emma has developed 2 inclusive apprenticeship sites in the last year, one with Ixion and one with WS Training, and an additional offer in horticulture with Abberton Rural Training, which will go live this year. So in summary, the team, before we move on to inclusive apprenticeships, we've created 4 inclusive apprenticeships, which we'll talk a bit more about, 17 traineeships in horticulture administration and estate agency, a range of different employers there, construction, 22 roles within our supported businesses, which, like I said, were in digital marketing, leisure, hospitality, construction, creative sector, and 43 new supported internships across the NHS and agriculture sector. So I'm now going to pass you over to Suzanne to give you a bit more in-depth overview of our inclusive apprenticeships.
Thank you, Jeffro. Oh, have we got echo? Are we okay? No, I think we're okay. Thank you, Jeffro. Just to confirm as well, they're additional, they're new pathways on the that the team have developed. They're not the colleges have still got all their existing supported internships and traineeships are operating in Essex as well. These are additional that have a very end-to-end and inclusive focus running through them. So that's a lot of work the team have done. But inclusive apprenticeships, so like all pathways, we spent some time as a team thinking about when you say an inclusive apprenticeship or you say a supported apprenticeship or a supported internship, what does it mean? How do people recognise themselves with it? So we came up with flexible, bespoke, earn while you learn programs designed for those with recognised learning difficulties and disabilities. It sort of says it on the tin. I still think it's too wordy. And to be honest with you, I think we need to go with an apprenticeship and then how we make inclusivity in apprenticeships as opposed to an inclusive apprenticeship is the way we use our language. Next slide, please, Jeffro. So we've spent some time on this and we started off like most people do with thinking about eligibility, and everybody wants to know, how is somebody eligible for a scheme? Do you need an education, health and care plan? What level of attainment do you need? All those type of things that come around it. And eligibility, we're all quite comfortable in that world, I think, as paid professionals. And we understand it and we like that sort of framework. But what we've found through inclusive apprenticeships and with our other pathways is we also need to think about suitability and flexibility. And we still haven't got this right in Essex, and it's our next journey with it. So we understood the eligibility, which is it has to cover the framework of apprenticeships, that you needed an education, health and care plan, a statement of education, or an LDA, historic LDA. We understood the bits about that a level 3 must have a level 2 functional maths, a functional skills requirement. But then when we started to look at on paper, a lot of people looked like they were eligible for it. We then started to think, well, why aren't more people going for it? And that's where suitability came in. So things like things like that young people must be able to be motivated in a work environment. Young people must be able to get to the point of employment, and those things aren't always as easy to see. And likewise, when we talk about flexibility, we also need to be mindful that this requires to an employer as well. So, for example, is the employer able to offer a flexibility around it? fundamentally with an inclusive apprenticeship is you can extend the duration of the course and the time of the apprenticeship. But I think we need to be clear is that all those things together have to come in together to be able to make sure that you can offer an inclusive apprenticeship. It's not one, they all three need to go together. And that leads us to which you've all been talking about this afternoon, is what happens in schools. So how do you keep people's aspirations, their resilience, their confidence and their motivations high as they go through their education journey and moving on from their education journey, that they would have the skills, the suitability to be able to do that. And as for employers, it's a big lesson learned there, but our experience in Essex, where we're working with employers, is employers want people who are motivated, they're going to turn up, not going to spend all day on their phones, and be able to learn the skills required and complete the task. So, you know, we don't see a major problem with our employers in Essex. Next slide, please, Jeffro. I think it's important, if Jonathan was here, he would certainly tell you about the apprenticeship standards, and he would certainly say to you that there's so many standards out there, and we need to be keeping people's aspirations and vocationally profiling people into the correct apprenticeship, and that those job descriptions and everything else is inclusive. That comes back to the flexibility. In Essex, we find we have 4 areas of vocation that most people with disabilities look at for one reason or another. Retail is generally charity shops, hospitality is generally cafes, horticulture is generally garden centres, and animal care is generally the RSPCA centre. When you profile people correctly, and you will all know this, when you profile people correctly, actually that's not necessarily where their aspirations are. And I'm really pleased to say in Essex, we've got some outstanding and really different employers coming on board. We've got a boat building, there's an event technician, we've got somebody doing early years, etc. So there's a range of things there. So it's important that we profile and then we're able to look at the range of standards that are appropriate. Next slide, Jeffro. So this comes from a case study of Tom. And I think this is the best way to describe it. Now, we know these stages need to happen. What is critical in this for us as a team is we manage the end-to-end process. We do stage 1 or we do stage 3. We follow the learner and the providers and all the paid professionals in this journey, and we support the family. We're not the key professional in it, but we are certainly there as the signposter and to be able to support through it. Again, you will probably look at this and say, why is vocational profiling happening at stage 2? That's where we are in Essex. We all know that should be happening much sooner and should be part of embedded through the education curriculum. We also know collaborative working happens as well, but there's also, when we've looked at stage 3 here, the exploring viable pathways, that's where CIAG comes into play. So where should that be happening sooner? Are they things which should be coming too? But it's just where Essex's journey was in particular for Tom. Tom is a young lad in a special school. He has complex epilepsy. But fundamentally he wants to work in delivering sports, and then there was a sports activator coach level 2 that was an apprenticeship standard. We were able to get a very receptive employer on board. Actually, it was his current school that was delivering it. They employed him as the apprentice. The training provider was particularly difficult in many ways. That's the bit we in Essex, it's training providers understanding how to make those changes. So rather than delivering over 12 months, delivering over 24 months, how to support somebody with a learning disabilities when delivering apprenticeships, because it's not the norm as such. So we're finding there's a lot of work in there. The employer's engagement for us, there's lots of ways to incentivize this, especially since COVID. There's been lots of on the apprenticeship. What we find in Essex is that employers are coming to us and asking us about can we have an apprentice. Then there's the bit about understanding the apprentice, access to work. Everybody in this room will be aware of access to work and the pains and the pitfalls of it, but we can't avoid it. We must use it. Travel's a big issue as always, but I think when you cull down to Tom, he says he'd like to thank all the people who helped me and get where I am today. And he is an apprentice doing his level 2, and he's been very, very successful in it and absolutely thriving. And what added values it's given to him is outstanding. So it is. We have one other apprentice journey that we have is a young lady, I think it's next slide, Jethro, is Imogen. And we've had issues all afternoon, haven't we, sharing? So Jethro will try to share it and hopefully it will. And if not, then we'll send it over. Oh, I don't think there's sound. No sound, Jethro.
I enabled audio on it, so I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay. If you come out and then reshare, and when it says share, you should have the sound option to share the sound.
Yeah, I did do that, but let's see. We'll try again.
Okay.
So Imogen was in one of our special schools. She had an aspiration to work with young people, early years actually.
Global development.
Is that working?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was for me. Go for it.
I'll pause and let you finish. Sorry.
No, carry on. That's far more important.
There we go.
Oh.
Imogen has global developmental delay, dyspraxia and ASD autism traits. Yeah, and she was diagnosed with those when she was around 8-9 years old. In her own environment, she appears more comfortable, more settled. Take her out of that environment and you get a very glazed look, not understanding the world really as we do. She hasn't completed yet, but she's coming to the end of her level 2 City and Guilds in child development. But this has allowed her to have a work placement within a nursery that she loves working with children. And we have seen a different Imogen working within the environment of childcare.
Imogen started with us as a volunteer and then progressed into an apprenticeship. We got to notice that she needed a bit of extra time when kind of asking her to do something. So we couldn't just say to her this in the morning, you've got to do this today, Imogen, and you can't kind of throw things at her. You need to give her a bit of time to kind of take the information in. The girls in the room, they all know her really well, and they're able to kind of cope with that slight change quite easily. It's not a problem at all.
A red tomato. Is it good girl available?
She's a very valued member of staff. The children absolutely love her, and Imogen has found that working with children is something that she absolutely loves. With new people coming through looking for jobs, you don't always find that. You don't find that person that's here because they really, really want to. 9 times out of 10, especially with apprentices, they're here because their parents told them they've got to go out and they've got to get a job. And, you know, they do learn to love childcare, but Imogen has loved it from the off. Having that from her was really lovely, and now we can build upon the communication side of everything and support her where she needs that support.
Thanks, Jeffrey. If you take the slides down, I'm not going to do the last slide, but the last slide was basically our successes, but the numbers really speak for themselves. So we're looking at 25 new support inclusive apprenticeships to start this within this before September, or as September comes. But what I really wanted to do, and this may be a bit cheeky actually, so I hope you've got a flavour of the information about inclusive apprenticeships. What I really wanted to do was, as we are the last, I think today, was just to really give a very big thank you to Pairing for Adulthood, and especially Ellen. She's been my mentor for many years, and I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you've done in supporting us and getting us this far. So over to you.
Thank you very much. And Ellen is still here. I know she was worried that she might have to dip out, but she is still with us. So yeah, yes, I'm sure it's very well deserved.
It's lovely that we have been able to support so many people to think about you know, what happens beyond education, and Essex has done a great job. And I think the fact that, you know, John and I spoke a lot about what is an inclusive apprenticeship, and exactly as you said, Suzanne, it's an apprenticeship but with support. And I think if we can get people to understand that through the work that you're doing and through the presentation you've just given, I think that's a real breakthrough. But thank you, and hopefully we'll continue working more together, but we just don't know what that looks like yet going forward. But really great, thanks very much.
Thank you. We're nearly out of time, and I'm very conscious that I cut people off earlier in terms of questions. So I don't know if there are any outstanding questions for Suzanne and Jethro, or for, I don't know whether Sophie's even here still actually, or Gareth.
Gareth had to go, I'm afraid.
Sophie's here.
Carol, but Sophie's still.
So any questions that are outstanding that we didn't manage to deal with before we had the break?
Not that I saw in the chat, Carol, but I think that everybody really appreciated the overview of the different curriculum and how that's making a real difference to young people. There might be no, just praise. Thank you for everyone. Great presentations. Your work is so important. So that's really, I think people have found it really worthwhile and really interesting.
Thank you. Yes, and I just want to sort of say a few words, just because actually this is going to be my last employment event, so because I'm retiring. So but it has been a really good way to end all the work that I've been involved with over many years around employment, and I think we picked up some really key messages today. You know, the importance of person-centred planning. You know, it's great to hear that so many people are using vocational profiles, people thinking about how to support people once they, you know, kind of start embarked on their careers. The importance of getting the curriculum right, all that preparation before people get to the point of going into a supported internship. You know, it's also fundamental, isn't it, to whether or not people succeed. And so much of this is dependent on partnership working. And, you know, we've got so many good partners here on this call today, you know, representing lots of different organisations. And I think it's just a matter of keeping up the good fight and, you know, trying to persuade people that, you know, employment should be a right. It's not a luxury. So thank you very much, everybody. It's been really a great pleasure. So thank you.